Yeah, so for those of you that don't know me, Jessica, thank you so much for the introduction. I will tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll jump right into PRINCE2, what it is, where it came from, some basic information. We'll then cover at a high level some of the similarities and differences between PMI's Project Management Body of Knowledge, or the PMBOK Guide, and PRINCE2. And then after that, we'll talk about some PRINCE2 concepts in a little bit of detail. We'll talk about the PRINCE2 certification path. It's a little bit different than the PMP certification, so we'll talk about some of the differences there, and then we'll round it out with some Q&A. So I've worked as a project and a program manager for about, I would say, 12, 13 years, primarily in the area of biotech, pharmaceuticals, healthcare. I am PMP certified. I'm also what's called PDU certified, which is the program management professional, and I'm a PRINCE2 practitioner certified, also a PRINCE2 instructor. I'm a huge proponent of giving back as a volunteer, and I've served on the boards of PMI in Phoenix, San Diego, and Washington, D.C., and led lots of projects myself, everything from putting PMOs in place to revamping processes, leading enterprise project management tool rollouts. Yeah, and I've had the really good fortune to do a lot of different things. Yeah, I had heard about PRINCE2 from some colleagues, and once I started investigating it, found that it was really, really interesting. The PRINCE2 name itself is actually an acronym for Projects in Controlled Environments. It was developed for and is used extensively by the UK government. It's also widely used in the private sector, mostly outside of the United States. So in the UK, internationally, there's about as many people getting certified worldwide in PRINCE2 as there are in PMP. It's just here in the U.S., most people get certified in PMP. Outside of the U.S., folks, really the standard is PRINCE2. It came to be, version 1 came out in 1989, so it had a similar story to PMP or the Project Management Body of Knowledge. It's a bit of a mature process. It's been out for a few decades. Version 1 came out in 89. Version 2, they did a refresh back in 1996, and the current version is actually PRINCE2. The 2 at the end, version 2, kind of stuck. So the current version is called PRINCE2, and it's the 2009 edition. PRINCE2 is a method. It's a methodology. It's a certification. It's been adopted by many different countries worldwide. So if you're working in a global organization, you will likely have worked or be working with project managers that are certified in PRINCE2. So it's really big in the UK, very big in Western Europe and Australia. In fact, it's required by the British government for all projects that it commissions. And I think it's a great complement to the PMBOK. As project managers, it's a great way to differentiate yourself, to have both of those certifications kind of in your back pocket. Just like PMI's Project Management Body of Knowledge, there is a standard book that really is kind of the Bible for the PRINCE2 certification, and that's called Managing Successful Projects with PRINCE2. And it's really written, like the PMBOK, for the audience of the project manager. And so here's the picture of what that officially looks like. About how they're similar, how they're different. So first and foremost, the PMBOK Guide says that is a framework. And what a framework means is that it talks about all the tools, all the techniques that you could use as a project manager, kind of all the tools for your toolbox. And then you as a project manager have to tailor that to your project and figure out what you're going to use and what you're not. So it really just says, here's all the tools. Let's talk about what the tools are and how each of the different tools can be used, and then you figure out how you want to implement that, how you want to do that. Whereas the PRINCE2 method really is a methodology. It says it's a bit of a paint by numbers and says if you're going to do a project and call it PRINCE2, here are the things that it needs to do. What's nice about a method is that if you go into an organization, that I see a lot of times is you can go into a company and talk to 6 different project managers, 20 different project managers, and ask them how they manage a project, and they're all going to tell you very different things, and it can vary wildly. If an organization, however, is adopting PRINCE2, there's going to be some standardization there, and we'll talk about what that is. PRINCE2 is very simple in the sense that there's only 7 principles, 7 themes, 7 processes. But an organization that has said we are adopting the PRINCE2 method, you will see these 7 principles, 7 themes, 7 processes carried throughout, and there's going to be consistency across projects. The thing that's nice about the PMBOK guide that you won't see in PRINCE2, though, is a lot more explanation around tools and techniques. That how do you create a schedule? How do you manage scope? So there's a bit more detail around the tools, and you can see, there's a ton more processes. There's 5 process groups. Actually, now there's 9 knowledge areas, more than 40 processes within the PMBOK guide. Another difference, too, you'll see between the two is that the PMBOK guide is really driven around customer requirements. PRINCE2 is driven around having a business case, and we'll talk a bit more about that. One thing, too, is with the PRINCE2 method is that if you're not adhering to the 7 principles, you can't call it a PRINCE2 project. So in order to say that you're adhering to that methodology, you're going to adhere to that, and we'll talk about what that is. Another benefit that you'll see in PRINCE2 that you don't see in the PMBOK guide itself is that it includes lots of document templates, process-oriented checklists. It's very, very approachable for new project managers because it's that methodology. It gives you step-by-step instructions. It says, here's the stuff that you should be doing, and what a project manager following the PMBOK guide would know as like project initiation or project planning. They call them a little bit different terms, but it's really nice. It takes you beginning to end. Here are the things that you have to be thinking about if you're doing a PRINCE2 project. PRINCE2 also doesn't claim to be as comprehensive as the PMBOK guide. Rather, it distills down, or it focuses in on the key elements that are going to allow a project to be successfully assessed, successfully completed. So I like to say the PMBOK guide really describes the how, whereas PRINCE2 describes the what. What are the basic things that you need in order for a project to be ultimately successful? Talk about this. What do you see as the top 3 principles for a successful project? And I think this will be an interesting thing. So what I'd like you guys to do is just type into the chat window what you think are key guiding principles. What are those things that are essential if you're going to have a successful project? Good things here. You need a project champion, absolutely. You need clear customer expectations and alignment. You need to be able to define requirements, constraints, resources. Claire says communication is key. I would absolutely agree with that. Sponsor and team are aligned. Yeah. We need to be making sure that those 2 things are in alignment, otherwise we're